Christmas evening, on the first day of the week, when the doors of the house where the disciples had met were locked for fear of the Jews, Jesus came and stood among them and said, "Peace be with you." After that, he showed them his hands and his side. Then the disciples rejoiced when they saw the Lord. Jesus said to them again, "Peace be with you. As the Father has sent me, so I send you." When he had said this, he breathed on them and said to them, "Receive the Holy Spirit." As we look forward to the next season in the church's year of Pentecost, we have this encounter with Jesus, which is a private experience before the public one. This morning, Jesus is breathing on us to empower us to be faithful leaders in our generation. He knows that we still need the promise of peace and his presence to deliver it. It is peace that helps us to exhibit self-control, which is the last of the fruit of the Spirit. Love, joy, peace, goodness, kindness, gentleness, faithfulness, meekness, patience were the others. When we have peace in our hearts, we can control what we say and do so as not to add to the emotional turbulence and physical violence around us. To you and all other leaders and authority figures in this nation, we applaud you for each time you display this character trait of self-control in debate. Each time you resist the temptation to take a bribe. Each time you model integrity for us in your daily conduct. On this International Day of the Family, I speak now on behalf of our young people and children. I say to every parent and other adults in our country, we celebrate you. We appreciate when you hold your temper when we try to get you to lose it. Speaking, of course. We honor you for setting us godly examples, even if we do not understand right now. We trust you to make wise decisions on our behalf, controlling any tendency to sink to immoral, illegal, or violent behavior. Our children speak to us as adults. May we all open our hearts to receive God's Holy Spirit and show the world our strength of character as people who are self-controlled. Let us pray. Our Father, who art in heaven,
hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen.
Dr. Hubert Minnis, Peter Turnquest, Brent Simonet, Desmond Bannister, Brentwood Wells, Jeffrey Lloyd, Dr. Dwayne Chan, Marvin Dames, Frankie Campbell, Dionisio Diagula, Michael Pinzard, Darren Henfield, Ramal Ferreira, Lanisha Rowe, Brenda Rowe, Alfred Johnson, Philip Davis, Vaughn Miller, Patricia Parker Edgecombe, Hiram Lewis, Carlton Gomez, James Audrey, Travis Robinson, Adrian Gibson, Donald Saunders, Frederick McAlpine, Hank Johnson, Mark Hume, Michael Post, Miriam Reckley, Manuel, Reese Shipman, Reuben Ramey, Ricky Mackey, Shannon Lon Cartwright, Chanel Ferguson, Glennis Anna Martin, Faisal Forbes, Chester Cooper.
Good morning, honorable members. Honorable members, we have a number of distinguished persons visiting with us this morning. And in the words of David, King David, in the 133rd Psalm, he says, "Behold, how good and how pleasant it is for brethren to dwell together in unity. It is like the precious ointment upon the head that runs down upon the beard, even Aaron's beard, that went down to the skirts of his garments, as the dew of Hermon, and as the dew that descended upon the mountains of Zion. For there the Lord commanded the blessing, even life, forevermore. I would like to introduce a group of distinguished gentlemen who have decided to select the Bahamas for the 100th conference of the Grand Masters and the 71st Grand Matron and Patrons Conference being held in the Bahamas. We have with us from the Most Worshipful Prince Hall Grand Lodge of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas, past Grand Master Edison Dames, past Master Shane Monka, past Master Vaughn Jones, past Grand Master Willie Tate from the state of Texas. Are there any other persons with your group? Can you all stand? Welcome to the Bahamas and have a wonderful conference. Also, we have another group with us. That group brings from Mangrove Bush Primary School in Long Island. I understand that they are on their way. So while they transition on their way to the Parliament, we have a group of nurses, student nurses with us who are celebrating Nurses Week. And at this time, can you stand? Thank you. At this time, I'll call on the Honorable Member for Elizabeth, the Minister of Health, to bring remarks.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I wish to be very brief. It is indeed a pleasure to welcome this group of young individuals who are either in pre-nursing or actually in nursing school. The last week, Wednesday, was the observation of Student Nurses Day. And so they requested to come and spend a little time in the Honorable House of Assembly. I am advised, Mr. Speaker, that we now have almost 400 young persons enrolled in training to become nurses. Beautiful. And certainly this is an example of the commitment and selfless service intended to be provided to the people of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. So I say thank you to Rosemary Josie, who is there in her lead capacity. Thank you very much. You've been a fine example as to what they should emulate, and it's a pleasure having you here this morning. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable. Thank you, Honorable Member. The Chair recognizes the Honorable Member for Cat Island, Ronki, and San Salvador.
Speaker, I think it will be remiss of us, you having recognized their presence, for us not to speak to the worthiness and the lofty ideals of which members of the fraternity. I should have been here? Oh, you intend to do it? Grace us with their presence today. The member of Elizabeth, and I speak to him as member of Elizabeth, is very familiar. I think he's also a past master. You know, Jaya?
You know who Charlie is, though.
Oh, yeah, man. He's the son of the most preeminent sovereign Grand Master, who has been a leading light mentor of my own, because he was the one that elevated me to the past master rank, along with my brothers who sit in the audience, in the gallery today. But I think it's important to recognize that organizations such as the Masons do uphold what we call doing things that's right, doing things and understanding relational, the importance of relational things that builds up the common good amongst humanity. And my experience has been that it has served me well over the many, many years that I've had my association with it. And I urge us to continue to uplift the body in the context that some of our the dysfunctional aspect of our society truly comes about because of what some people say there's a lack of belonging. There's nothing to belong to. Organizations such as Masons and the rest is something that people should belong to, because there they'll find the brotherhood, the guidance, the sort of building of character that lends to the common good and the building of a nation. And we must always uphold that and urge people to continue to try to belong to something as opposed to just being isolated and believing that one man is in fact an island. And so I commend you, wish you well in the upcoming conference, and wish those who visit us that they will come once again and ensure that they enjoy the best of the Bahamas as they're here. So we welcome them and we wish you well. To the nurses, of course, it is good to know that we are attracting nurses, and I trust that we'll find the ways and means of not just attracting them to become, but also let us find the resources and the means as well to ensure that we can keep them after training. And I think that is the challenge that we will have going forward, because there is that challenge of other nations poaching upon the best and brightest in our small island states. And the time has come for us as small island states to sort of lean on one another to defend ourselves against the poaching of our best and brightest. We train them, we provide them with the opportunities to be what they are, and then when it's time for them to give the temptations of the better life in other jurisdictions, is so strong and pulling that we lose them. Let us try to find a way to not allow that to happen to this lot of nurses that you now train. And I wish them all well in their studies as they move on in their new profession.
Thank you, Honorable Member. Introduction and swearing in of new members. I'm not a communications desk. You want to do it then or now? Laying of documents by ministers. The chair recognizes the honorable member for East Grand Bahama.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I beg leave to lay on the table of the House the Bahamas Registered Stock Act, Chapter 362, Bahamas Registered Stock Directions 2019, Bahamas Registered Stock Number 2, 2039, and 2049.
Order that the document be brought up. Order that the document do lie on the table. Further laying of documents by ministers. The chair recognizes the honorable member for East Grand Bahama.
Mr. Speaker, I beg leave to lay on the table of the House the Bahamas Development Bank financial statements, 31st December 2018.
Order that the document be brought up. Order that the document do lie on the table. Further laying of documents by ministers. The chair recognizes the honorable member for East Grand Bahama.
Mr. Speaker, I beg leave to lay on the table of the House the Central Bank of the Bahamas 2018 Annual Financial Report and Statement of Accounts for the year ended December 31st, 2018. And Mr. Speaker, in doing so, I do encourage the public to get a copy online and read it.
Thank you, honorable minister. Order that the document be brought up. Order that the document do lie on the table. Further laying of documents by ministers. The chair recognizes the honorable member for Yamacraw.
Mr. Speaker, I rise and beg leave to lay on the table of the House a copy of the following: the International Obligations, Economic and Ancillary Measures, Iran Order 2019. And which will leave, Mr. Speaker, I'd just like to bring a few short remarks with regard to the significance of the order. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'll take this one off and give it to you.
Order that the document be brought up.
Mr. Speaker, members are aware.
Just a moment.
Thank you.
Order that the document to lie on the table.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
You may
Speaker,
proceed.
members are aware that the Commonwealth of the Bahamas became a member of the United Nations, the UN, in 1973, pursuant to the United Nations Chapter. The United Nations Chapter, inter alia, established the principal organs of the United Nations, including the Security Council, which is primarily responsible for the maintenance of international peace and security. Pursuant to Article 25 of the UN Chapter, the members of the United Nations agreed to accept and carry out the decisions of the Security Council in accordance with the present chapter. Accordingly, the Bahamas, as a member of the UN, is obliged to implement resolutions of the United Nations Security Council. Thus, in 1993, Parliament enacted the International Obligations, Economic and Ancillary Measures Act, Chapter 16 of the Statute Laws of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas, which provides for the imposition of economic sanctions and for the taking of ancillary measures to give effect to the international obligations of the Bahamas. The Security Council, at its 7,488th meeting on the 20th July 2015, adopted the Security Council's Resolution 2231, which endorsed the Joint Cooperative Plan of Action. The Joint Cooperative Plan of Action, commonly known as the Iran Nuclear Deal, is a detailed nuclear agreement with 5 annexes, which was concluded by Iran and the P5, that is China, France, Germany, Russia, and United Kingdom and United States, on the 14th of July 2015. The Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action lifts the nuclear-related sanctions on Iran in exchange for restrictions and inspections over Iran's nuclear program. Mr. Speaker, under the JCPOA, Iran reaffirmed that under no circumstances will Iran ever seek, develop, or acquire nuclear weapons. Iran agreed, and among other things, one, to cut its stockpile of enriched uranium by 97% for 15 years. Two, to limit enrichment to 3.67% for 15 years. Three, to reduce its installed centrifuge by 2/3 for 10 years. Four, not to build any more heavy water facilities or accumulate heavy water for 15 years. And five, to forego proceedings. Further, Iran agreed to allow the International Atomic Energy Agency to monitor its entire nuclear supply chain, including uranium mines, for 25 years, and all centrifuge production facilities for 20 years, and the JCPOA was implemented on 16th January 2016. Security Council Resolution 2231, 2015, comprised a preamble, paragraphs on the termination and application of provisions of previous resolutions, the JCPOA implementation, exemptions and other matters, and three, two annexes set out the contents of the JCPOA, and Annex B provides the statement which includes the specific restrictions on nuclear-related transfers and activities, ballistic missiles related to transfers and activities, armed-related transfers, assets freeze, and travel ban, exceptions on assets freeze, travel bans, and travel, and other required actions. The Security Council and facilitations of full implementation of the JCPOA. Also, the Security Council resolution provides for the termination of Security Council resolutions 1969, 1737, 1749, 1803, 1835, 1929, and 2224, subject to the reimposition for significant non-performance of the JCPOA commitment. The Security Council resolution will terminate in 2025, provided that the previous Security Council resolutions have not been reinstated. Mr. Speaker, the specific restrictions under Annex B of the Security Council Resolutions 2015 include the supply, sale, or transfer of items, materials, and equipment, goods, and technology. Two, the provision of any technical assistance or training, financial assistance, investment, bunkering, or other service, provided that approval is given in advance on a case-by-case basis by the Security Council. Also, there are restrictions on assets freezing, other financial assets, and economic resources that are owned or controlled by the individual and entities on the 2234 list, Annex here too, and the travel ban. Mr. Speaker, the 2019 order revokes and replaces the international obligations, economic and ancillary measures, Iran Order 2008, and the international obligations, economic and auxiliary measures, Iran Amendment Order 2010, which incorporated sanctions imposed on Iran to prohibit that country from conducting nuclear tests on launching ballistic missiles. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Member. Further laying of documents by ministers. Honorable Member for Yamacraw, are you intending to table that document?
Yes, Mr. Speaker.
Or order that the document be brought up?
Okay. Oh, yes. Can I get you words? I'll give you the rest. I can't find it. Okay, ready. Can I sign it? Mr. Speaker.
Yes, Honorable
This is
Member.
very unusual, but I crave your indulgence just to recognize two persons. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Go ahead.
Mr. Merlin Adley and Mr. Crawley. When, in the Brotherhood, there are certain things that you're banned from speaking of, and that was honored. But when I was sent on a mission that I termed Behind Enemy Lines, there were two young men who stepped forward and assisted me immensely. And I would just like to recognize Brother Merlin Adley and Brother Crawley. Brother Merlin Adley was the Chief General in my forces, and we were victorious. Thank you very much, sir. And Mr. Crawley was his able armor bearer.
Thank you, Honorable Member. Order that the document do lie on the table. Further laying of documents by ministers. Statements and communications by ministers. The Chair recognizes the Honorable Member for Southern Shores.
Mr. Speaker, I'm always grateful for the opportunity to stand in this place and to speak for and on behalf of the good people of Southern Shores. I want to take this opportunity. Don't worry, the generator will kick in. The generator. Let there be light.
Agreed.
Mr. Speaker, I take this opportunity to wish all the mothers of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas a happy Mother's Day. I was out of the jurisdiction on Sunday, but most especially those mothers from Southern Shores. Mr. Speaker, I want to join the Minister of Health in welcoming our young persons who have chosen to give their life to the care of others. Nursing is a much needed profession. As a former police officer, I can say that you will face days when you feel like it's a thankless job, but there are persons who depend on and rely on what you do, and so I urge you to do your best, because 1 out of 10 will come back like the leper to say thanks. Mr. Speaker, I am here to speak on International Day of the Families. And it is no coincidence that the Prince Hall Masons are here. I can say without fear of honest contradiction that Freemasonry is one of the largest international families that exists. Mr. Speaker, in 1989, I was a police officer attached to Exuma. I hadn't seen my biological brother for over a year because he was attached elsewhere. And we met this day at the airport in Nassau. He was going, I was coming. And I was about to give him a hug. And he said, hold on, man, people may think we, you know. And we resisted the hug because we were concerned about what other people may think. It was not until March of 1996 when I was raised from a dead level that I felt comfortable in public to say to another man, I love you, bro, without any concern about what the general public may think. And what they do, I can declare here today that Freemasonry is not a secret. We all here. I also can, for the edification of those who don't know, say that Freemasons are about finding good men and making them better. Freemasons take their mandate from James 1:26, which says, if any among you claims that he is religious, but bridleth not his own tongue, he deceives his own heart. Because true religion is this, that you seek out the widows and orphans in their affliction, and only then will you find yourself unspotted before the world. So, brethren,
you know that.
yes. So, brethren, I bring you greetings. I bring you greetings from the Most Worshipful Prince of Peace Grand Lodge, Ancient Free and Accepted Masons here in the Bahamas. I bring you greetings from the General Grand Masonic Congress of Ancient Free and Accepted Masons, incorporated in 1899 in New Orleans, Louisiana, which I have the privilege of serving as the first non-American President General. I also bring you greetings from my Grand Lodge in Houston, Texas. And I trust that the Most Worshipful E.M. Hunter Grand Lodge in Houston, Texas. And I trust that you will have a very successful session. I would be remiss, Mr. Speaker, if I didn't mention that the first time my name was entered into the Hansard of this place was in late 2016, I think it is, when Duke Smith was being honored as being the most decorated Mason. And I had the privilege to be part of the entourage. And my name was called off by the speaker. And I made a commitment that this place would hear my name a little more than that. So thank God, here I am. Mr. Speaker, I extend thanks to you for allowing me this opportunity to make this brief intervention to share that today, 15th of May, is being celebrated all over the world as the United Nations annual observance of the International Day of Families. According to Brad Henry, 26th governor of Oklahoma in 2002, and I quote, families are the compass that guide us. Families provide the inspiration to reach great heights, and families are our comfort when we occasionally falter, end quote. Mr. Speaker, the theme for the 2019 observance is families and climate action, and the focus is on the Sustainable Development Goal 2013. This year, the United Nations focus on families, government policies, and major climate change action targets
that may be used to improve and protect our families and our planet. In celebration of this observance, the Ministry of Social Services and Urban Development has partnered with Dr. Sandra Dane Patterson and the Crisis Center to organize and sponsor a symposium on the family under the theme, The Bahamian Family, the Challenges of the 21st Century. Mr. Speaker, the notable partners for the symposium include Dr. Nicolette Bethel, Dr. David Allen, retired Justice Janie Thompson, and our very own Miss Iris Adley, our person from our Persons with Disabilities, who is the consultant there. These speakers will provide insight on the concern and opinion that our society's ills and moral decay as a result are the result of the deterioration and dysfunction in the family. It is my prayer that today's discussion yield information, best practices, and suggestions for ways to help and support families in need. Mr. Speaker, in the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development Goals, SDGs, 170 countries expressed their commitment to protect the planet from destruction and take urgent action on climate change. Increases in global temperature, sea level rise, ocean pollution, and other climate change impacts are seriously affecting low-lying coastal communities and countries. The lives of hundreds of families and the biological support systems on the planet are at risk. SDG number 13 is asking for families all over the world to be a part of the solution. Mr. Speaker, today we join our voices to hundreds of discussions and speeches occurring around the planet, which will highlight how families may become involved. The main goal of this day is to focus on SDG 13, which is to combat climate change and protect our climate. Mr. Speaker, families throughout the Bahamas may do their part by simply planting native dilly trees, avocado trees, mango trees on the boundaries of their properties that will help to build resistance and resilience against strong winds from hurricanes. Sharing intergenerational financial knowledge to the children, including how to make money by canning tomatoes, preserving tamarinds, guavas, and other vegetables. Setting up community cooperatives as a source of sustained funding. Embracing youth perspectives on climate action. Example, recycle, reuse, reduce, use of plastic and waste materials. Mr. Speaker, family is usually defined as a group of people who are related to each other by marriage, shared resistance, or blood. Thankfully, for many of our families in the Bahamas, the term family also includes meaningful connections and experiences that provide love, laughter, and legacies. Families includes incredible and unbreakable bonds that are created by grandparents, great-grandparents, mothers, fathers, sisters, brothers, nieces, nephews. Many of our families provide inspiration and comfort in a world of uncertainty. Many families in the Bahamas include support and may be associated with that warm, fuzzy feeling of completeness and oneness. Mr. Speaker, I'm sure that I'm not alone in celebrating the many ways families are being strengthened by family reunions, church programs, civil society projects, and of course, even the regattas and homecomings that provide an opportunity for long-lost relatives and friends to get together and celebrate in our respective family islands. Mr. Speaker, within the Ministry of Social Services and Urban Development, there are numerous programs and initiatives that are specially organized all year long with the aim of building stronger families. We're most pleased of the work being done by the 25 urban renewal centers throughout the country and the 3 family life centers in New Providence, supervised by the Community Affairs Division. We celebrate that these centers provide environments conducive for building the habits and skills of successful families. There are many programs and projects being offered. Mr. Speaker, there are a number of challenges confronting our families in the Bahamas. Among them might be amendments needed legislatively. Also, we're still awaiting for the establishment of a family court. There are still some persons who are suffering the indignities that are involved in trying to collect child support maintenance payments. And so, Mr. Speaker, we want to advise families out there who are facing those challenges and more that there is a support system and mechanism available through the Ministry of Social Services and Urban Development. As we celebrate this day, Mr. Speaker, I'm optimistic that despite the challenges, the power of family love and support has the capacity to improve our communities and our great Bahama land. One action at a time, one solution at a time, one family member at a time. I want to take this opportunity, Mr. Speaker, to wish all of my honorable colleagues and persons here present, persons who are listening by radio and television, a happy International Families Day. May God continue to bless families everywhere, especially families in the Bahamas. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Member. Order that the document be brought up. Order that the document do lie on the table. Further statements and communications by ministers. Communications by the clerk. Messages from the Governor General. Messages from the Senate. Thank you, Honorable Clerk. Honorable members, I have in my possession a message from the Honorable President of the Senate. The Honorable Senate acquaints the Honorable House of Assembly that they have passed the following bill, and that is a bill for an act to amend the Immigration Act to make provisions for the BH-1B work visa and BH-4S permit to provide for work visa exemptions and for connected matters. Order that the message do lie on the table. Motions for leave of absence, leave to resign seat, and new writs. Presentation of petitions. Presentation of reports of committees. Adoption of reports of committees. First reading of bills. Second reading and committal of bills. The chair recognizes the honorable member for Southern Shores.
Mr. Speaker, I beg leave for the second reading and debate of a bill for an act to amend the law relating to the election of branch board members. And this is a bill to amend the Royal Bahamas Police Force Staff Association Act. Mr. Speaker, sometime in 1998, early 1998, while serving as a police officer, I had the privilege to write to the then Commissioner B.K. Bonamy, indicating to him that a bill allowing for the establishment of a police staff association had been passed, and asking for someone from the Attorney General's office to come and explain the bill to police officers. At that point, Mr. Speaker, the whole question of a police staff association was taboo, was a curse word, dirty word. And police officers everywhere, particularly those in the senior ranks, were against the whole thought of it, and no one wanted to be seen as supporting. The Commissioner of Police eventually allowed for Ms. Ferguson from the Attorney General's office to come and explain to a group of us. Only a small handful of officers showed up because there was this fear of reprisal. After the sharing and explaining of the bill, Mr. Speaker, the act, a group of us got together and decided that we will form a steering committee to cause a police staff association within the Royal Bahamas Police Force to become reality. Again, Mr. Speaker, we couldn't find a place to meet. No senior officer would allow for a meeting to be held at his station or division to discuss a police staff association.
Honorable member, I know, like God, when God said, let there be light.
Yes.
And when you said, let there be light, there was light. However, despite the lights coming back on, we have still a technical difficulty that needs to be addressed. We expect that it can be addressed in 3 to 5 minutes. So at this time, I'll entertain a motion. The chair recognizes the honorable member for Bamboo Town.
Mr. Speaker, I do now move that the House do suspend. That the House do suspend for about 10 minutes to allow us to be able to deal with technical difficulties that we are experiencing. It will also give us an opportunity to take a picture with the gentlemen that are here present in the gallery.
Thank you, honorable member.
I second.
We'll also use that opportunity if the nursing students wish. We can also get some photographs with you.
Yes, 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 yes.
It has been moved and seconded that the business of this House do suspend for approximately 10 minutes. As many as are in favor will remain seated. Those who oppose will stand. The business of this House stands suspended for approximately 10 minutes. Honorable members, when the business of this House suspended, the honorable member for Southern Shores had the floor. The chair recognizes the honorable member for Southern Shores.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise for a second reading of a bill for an act to amend the law relating to election of branch boards of the Royal Bahamas Police Force Staff Association. Mr. Speaker, before we were aware of our technical difficulties, I was seeking to give a historical perspective of the Police Staff Association. And I spoke about how in the early days in 1998, when the word staff association was perceived as or treated like a dirty word within the ranks of the Royal Bahamas Police Force, particularly in the higher ranks. After having gotten permission in 1998 from then Commissioner B.K. Barnaby for the act to be explained to police officers, we still had difficulty in finding a meeting place where interested officers could seek to bring this act into fruition. And so at this point, Mr. Speaker, I would be remiss if I didn't commend former Superintendent Douglas Hanna, who stood out and said, Corporal Campbell, Corporal Josie, Corporal Duncombe, Philip Don Wilson, and the whole group of us that were agitating, you can meet here at the then CID as long as you don't disturb or interrupt the normal flow of things. We had our first elections at the end of 1998. Philip Don Wilson became the first chairman of the Police Staff Association. The Police Staff Association, Mr. Speaker, is mandated to look after the welfare and working conditions of police officers. Much has changed since the introduction of the Police Staff Association. Simple things, Mr. Speaker, simple things. There was a time before the Police Staff Association when supervisors would write in secret an appraisal on police officers. Sometimes it would be damning, and then he would say to the young officer, "Oh, I got you. You're gonna be all right." Because the officer did not have an opportunity to see and respond to what was written. There was a time prior to the Police Staff Association when organizers of private functions would approach the police force and say, "Give me X amount of officers for my private function, which is for private gain." And officers would be provided, Mr. Speaker. And the officers would spend the whole 8 hours, whatever the case may be. And then later, a check would be written to the welfare fund of the Royal Bahamas Police Force without any recognition or acknowledgement of the officers who actually did the work. I'm pleased to say that we've come a long way in the Royal Bahamas Police Force, where the Police Staff Association's representatives are allowed to sit at the table and discuss the way forward, where they are allowed to sit at the table and be a part of the strategies that are meant and intended to keep Bahamians, visitors alike, safe in and throughout the Bahamas. We're here today after 21 years, Mr. Speaker, to make an amendment to the Police Staff Association Act. It's a very small amendment, one sheet, a very small amendment, but it is an amendment, Mr. Speaker, that has significance and importance. We're here to amend the tenure of the elected officers of the Police Staff Association. As it stands, officers are elected for a period of 1 year. Normally after the elections, it takes a few months well, not a few months, it takes a few weeks for the officers to organize themselves, choose who's going to be the chairman, and then there's the courtesy call on the Commissioner of Police, the courtesy call on the Governor General, the courtesy call on the Minister of National Security. And before you know it, Mrs. Speaker, 6 months has passed, and the officers are still just getting used to what it is they are mandated to do, just getting into the actual work of the association. And next thing you know, 3 months later, they are planning a new set of elections because their tenure is for 1 year. And so what this bill is seeking to do, Mr. Speaker, is to simply extend the tenure of the elected officers of the Police Staff Association to 2 years, which will allow that team of elected officers sufficient time to become familiar with their duties, sufficient time to form the necessary partnerships, sufficient time to seek the advice and the counsel of their members, and to truly determine what it is their members wish for them to represent, and then have actually a little over a year to get some work done. As it stands, the tenure of 1 year is more disruptive than it is helpful. Some teams of elected officers have been fortunate to be re-elected, and they would have had the opportunity for continuation. But, Mr. Speaker, it is important to treat an organization, an institution as important as this with the respect they deserve, to have the opportunity, the best opportunity, to become fully equipped, fully resourced to represent the persons that they are called upon to represent. And so we are asking for the amendment of Section 6 of Chapter 206. Section 6 of the Royal Bahamas Police Staff Association Act, and to be deleted as follows: an officer of a member of a branch board shall be held every 2 years. Like I said, Mr. Speaker, a very short amendment, an amendment that is not shrouded in any kind of controversy, an amendment that I believe all here present should have no difficulty in supporting, an amendment that will facilitate the officers who are so elected to be better able to engage, to have more time to familiarize themselves, to have more time to provide the service that they have been called upon to render. I would be remiss, Mr. Speaker, if I didn't acknowledge standing here that there are other matters in the act that need to be addressed. But I say that the present officers see this as a very urgent issue which would allow them to have more time, Mr. Speaker. But however, I can recall as a sitting chairman, I would have sought amendments to have the whole framework of the elections revamped. I would have recommended as a sitting chairman to have the chairman, the secretary, and the treasurer of the Police Staff Association elected outright by all of the members to ensure that they have the mandate of all of the members. And then I would have wished to see that those 3 elected members are not affected by promotion. Because back in the day, that was one of the tools used by the administration. An elected officer is performing, an elected officer is agitating. Let's just give him a promotion. And once he's promoted, he's off the scene and he's unable to continue the work, because the act provides for the group or category of officers that can be members of the Police Staff Association The act also provides that if you are elected on the constable's branch board and you are promoted to a corporal, well, the corporal's branch board is already filled, so there's no room for you to serve. Mr. Speaker, I want to assure the officers who might be listening to me that we are in dialogue with the chairman, executive chairman, Sergeant Sonny Miller, and his entire executive team, and the other issues that are of concern are being discussed, and they will be addressed in short order. I wish not to preempt the substantive Minister for National Security, but I am satisfied that discussions are ongoing and that those matters will be addressed. But for now, Mr. Speaker, I seek the support of this Parliament to amend this one section to allow the officers to be better able to carry out their mandate. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Member. Is there a seconder? The Chair recognizes the Honorable Member for Yamakro.
Good morning, Mr. Speaker. Thank you. Mr. Speaker, let me first say it's a privilege, delight, and honor to stand here today and second a bill for an act to amend the law relating to the elections of branch board members, that is the Royal Bahamas Police Force Staff Association Act. Mr. Speaker, one thread that will follow throughout my speech is that which says, whoever wishes to become great among us, he must first be a servant. And so, in terms of the debate here today, Mr. Speaker, as it relates to the Police Staff Association and the amendment which we seek to produce today, Mr. Speaker, is about a group of men and women established by their organization being established by the laws of the Bahamas for the purpose of serving, Mr. Speaker. The Speaker of the Royal Bahamas Police Force, which is more than 200 years old, is that such organization, Mr. Speaker, established by the Constitution of the Bahamas for the specific purpose, Mr. Speaker, as indicated in the Police Act of service. And Mr. Speaker, the Police Act identifies the object and purpose of the police force, and that is to prevent, protect, prevent and detect crime, and to apprehend all offenders against the law and the preservation of the peace. And Mr. Speaker, we know the circumstances with which we face in the Bahamas today, and the role that the Royal Bahamas Police Force play in not only leading this, Mr. Speaker, but in serving members or this entire Bahamas. And I quite recall, and I said it before, when no less a person than the Commissioner of Police, Mr. Ferguson, and his top team was here, I recall the fact, which when it was brought to my attention, I was not too happy about it. And as I said, then I would always say when I was, and I'm growing in some knowledge, when my father would say certain things to me or do certain things, I'd say, why would he do that? Because I didn't approve that. But I do recall, and I do celebrate the fact that I was once a member of the Royal Bahamas Police Force, like my colleague, yes, and I was a constable for some 14 years in the Royal Bahamas Police Force. I see Exuma raise his head and looks at me. At that time, they said that I was a little too, unruly and uncontrollable, but that was not so. That was not so, Mr. Speaker. But you know, but my father said of the Royal Bahamas Police Force, and thanking them through the then Minister of National Security, Mr. Frank Watson, that he thanked them for adopting me for the level of discipline that that organization brought into my life, for reposing the confidence in me to invest the taxpayers' monies in me, in terms of allowing me to go to school, to get an education. And he always told me that you owe that organization. Because when those young men were out in the night doing the investigation, even though you had it hard in Barbados, they were here working and serving. And so I will for always be grateful to the Royal Bahamas Police Force. Mr. Speaker, the Police Staff Association, as indicated by Sudden Shores, because no doubt he lived the experience. And I remember when we were having the discussions about the Police Staff Association, a joke was always told about this officer who wanted to lead the charge. And so he said, men, we're going to go to the Governor General's residence to put this petition, a petition to the Governor General to have a police staff association established. And the story goes that when he left police headquarters, he had a full battalion. And that's why they always say lead from the back. But he was unaware that when he left, given the instructions, left, right, about 10 men stopped at the gate. And they gave the story that when he turned at East Street to go by the post office, the next 10 or 20 left the battalion. So when he marched through the gate of Government House, all of us would have had the experience of the officer shouting the commands. You know, left to the right turn, attention. So the Governor General came out and said, you know, to what do I owe this auspicious occasion that you're here? He says, me and the boys came to put a petition for a police staff association. He said, the Governor General said, you and what boys? So he looked over his shoulder. There was only him one there. But you know, that joke was always told because it underscored what Sudden Shores said, that there was very little support for an organization whose intent it was to look after or look out for the welfare of police force within the ranks, of police officers within the ranks, Mr. Speaker. And just let me read the objective of the association as it is in the Act. It says, the objects of the association shall be to enable members of the association to consider and bring to the notice of the Commissioner matters affecting their welfare and efficiency, including pay, pension, and conditions of service, other than matters related to discipline and promotion affecting individual members of the force. And Mr. Speaker, I know that the member for Sudden Shores ably captured the environs of which we work. Because if a young police officer wanted to continue his education, you would suddenly find that you was on an island. Or if you decided that, you know, you're going to work out an arrangement with your lecturer where you work shifts that you're going to be missing for a week, someone would deliberately throw a wrench in your wheel. Mr. Speaker, and I experienced that. I quite recall I just gotten married and I decided I wanted to go to school. And all of a sudden I got a transfer to go to Exuma. And to go to Exuma. And the officer in whose charge I was placed did not take no for an answer. So, Mr. Speaker, a lot of the officers that I went to school with, I quite recall falling asleep in my car when I would work long night shifts. I remember Miss Bridget Gibson speaking to Mr. Parkinson, who later became the police commissioner, saying, this young man shows potential, comes to work on time, he's mannerly. There are certain things, she said, that you should have when you go to somebody's workplace that one shouldn't have to question you about. You should be punctual, you should have respect, because if they're paying you the people's money, saying you fit that mold. And so she worked with Mr. Parkinson to put me at the bank Then I went to school in the evening. And then she said, well, you could work nights and go to school all day. And that's what we did. And they made those arrangements. And I want to thank an officer, even though this police, and I had to use Police Staff Association, but I want to thank Mr. B.K. Bonamy, because I quite recall on so many occasions I would make applications to study. And for no good reason, the application would go missing, you know. And I do recall when I went to Barbados, Mr. Bonamy said to me, and I always tell his son this, I said, I owe you, because I remember your father and what he did for me. And I do recall when I got back from school, Mr. Bonamy said, Ellsworth, you can go. And then I got a call some months later from a lady saying, Ellsworth Johnson, come back. Well, I stayed away for that. I didn't come back home that Christmas. And I did not realize what Mr. Bonamy had done until I was in law school, because obviously I was not a part of the administration of the Royal Bahamas Police Force. That Mr. Bonamy had just allowed me to go. And he brought a different environment into the force. I quite recall when he was studying, they prevented him from completing. So he completed his studies in the twilight of the years. He got some time to go and finish his law degree. And so when I was back at the Eugene Depute Law School, I got a message from a senior officer. You wouldn't believe what we're doing now. I said, what are you doing? They said, we're approving your leave to go to Barbados. So I'd already gone and come back. But you wouldn't believe what else happened. Shortly thereafter, they called my salary. And so Mr. Farquharson said, but this story is to show, to tell you at the end of the day, what servitude is about, and what persons like Sudden Shores, Mr. Dawn Wilson, and other persons who were unafraid to fight for a right that police officers deserve. And when you go into those family islands and you saw the residence of the police officers, the pay conditions, shortly thereafter you see a lot of things after the Police Staff Association came into being, started to change for police officers, because there was a grouping in the police force who could bring those difficulties that were being experienced by police officers straight to the commissioner. And the commissioner, I was happy, starting with Mr. B.K. Bonamy and others who really tried, was able to listen to that. But when I came back, my salary was coded, and my father said to me, son, you don't need to get out there because look like they can kill you. But I always supported that organization. And he always told me, he said, whatever they meant for bad for you was for good. And today I realize that sometimes some people come into our lives, some persons to assist us, to heal our wounds, and then there are those who come to break bones. But all is for a good purpose. And I do recall some months ago I was sitting right in this good gentleman's office. It was next to me. Garden Hills. And Mr. Speaker, would you believe that my file went missing for more than 14 years? And yes, when we and I just want you to keep your attention on the Police Staff Association. And after the file going missing for 14 years, Mr. Speaker, I was in a ministry where the lady, when I asked, I said, I remember I came here about a matter concerning myself. And a lady was very kind to me, because she adumbrated that I didn't understand why they treated you the way they were treating you. And so she said, we had the discussion, and I left. I said, but I can't find this file. And I was there having a meeting with the Minister of Education and Garden Hills, and Garden Hills says, hey, since he was here, go and look and see if you could find this file. The lady said, but he wasn't a senior officer. This file wouldn't be here. The Garden Hills said, man, listen, if he said he was here, just go and check. My God, Houdini couldn't pull that one out. The file was there. So after 14 years, Mr. Speaker, of leaving the Royal Bahamas Police Force, the file was found. But, Mr. Speaker, my story, and I haven't given you all of it, pales in comparison to other people's stories who, through no fault of their own, never saw a promotion in the Royal Bahamas Police Force, but were committed to service. I never saw one. And I think that there was the intention that I would never see one, Mr. Speaker. But to God be the glory.
Yes.
But an organization such as the Police Staff Association, and if you see when the act was brought into power in 1997 under the F&M administration, that institution came to create a sense of esteem in the organization. It changed the morale of the organization. Because finally you had a group of officers who can not just look after the interests and rights of sub-officers, but also senior officers who are appointed in a different way, would be able to get a message to the Police Staff Association, and issues would be dealt with properly for them. So you had living arrangements on the family island, you had pay difficulties that they were experiencing, the union, how officers could legitimately, and in terms of servitude, and that's the reason why I use the scripture, he who would want to lead must first be a servant. They aren't paid the best, Mr. Speaker. They aren't paid the best. I do recall, still in my Spanish book, they sent me to work at the American Embassy. And I know Southern Shores would remember, long before they had the guardhouse that they built, you had a small little cubby hole that you would be in. And Seabreeze would also know because she's a servant police officer and also the Minister of National Security. And across from that cubby hole was the garbage. And I wrote my book, this is not how it's supposed to work. But you had an institution that we were then gravitating to because they were putting representation for us, and a proper facility was built. They were looking after the rights of police officers, those who weren't being promoted, and you see them doing it today. I was happy to see them the other day, and they aren't allowed to be a part of unions, even though they give so much. I saw them the other day as they marched in the Labor Day procession. But Mr. Speaker, it's very important to let officers know from whence we come. There were certain yards you go in where officials would have big bad dogs. Who? Man. They had man-eaters. And you had to lock yourself up in that little thing. And they turned the dogs loose. They turned those dogs loose. So you have to be in that yard. And you were expected to have all points covered. And expected to have all points covered sometimes where you don't have someone to come and relieve you. Am I right, Mr. Southern Shores? And sometimes you have to try and stay up all night when your senior officer is trying to sneak up on you. And they develop ways of coping, praying all night. So when somebody comes, they were saying a prayer. But that serves to underscore, and I want the younger officers to know that this institution came by blood, sweat, and tears. Many men went down and women went down before we could have gotten a police staff association to look after their rights. And I was able, and I'm proud to say, I was able to utilize the Police Staff Association to go and speak for me to the commissioner. Because it's a lonely trek. Every officer knows the red carpet. Before you get to the commissioner of police, you pass every senior officer. And I think sometimes they put the most ill-temperate one for the first one. It was strategy. As we laugh at these things, those were things that they went through. But I'm happy to see a police force now where the police commissioners embrace the Police Staff Association. They show great respect to the officers of the Police Staff Association. There was a time when the officers in charge of the Police Staff Association wasn't looked at with great respect. They didn't have a place where they could humanely house themselves. Everything was done to destroy it. And when it was convenient for some people, they try and tar and feather them with the cloak of political persuasion. knowing fully well that all that organization was attempting to do was to protect the rights of the police officers. So, Mr. Speaker, I am proud to stand here today and second this bill. Second, a bill that is intended, as the objective says, to bring notice to the Commission of matters affecting the welfare and efficiency, including pay, pension, and conditions of service, other than matters related to discipline and promotion affecting the individual of the members of the Royal Bahamas Police Force. And so, Mr. Speaker, I join with Sudden Shores in saying that there are other provisions of this act, and I know that led by the Prime Minister, that we support, and most certainly by those of us, and everybody in this House has been a recipient of the service rendered by the Royal Bahamas Police Force. And it's designed to amend Section 6 of the Act to extend the elections from 1 year to 2 years so that the officers may determine who will manage their affairs. And so I pray God's continued blessings on an organization that I have reached so much from, that I can say that my family has benefited from, that my children now benefit from. Because one of the interesting things about the institution is that no matter, and I hear people talking about service, no matter what you experience in the Royal Bahamas Police Force, you have to get up to go to work. You have to go to the quay. You sometimes have to stay on the quay when the plane or the boat doesn't come. You have to be on the quay when the weevils or the worms take the grits. People had those experiences, and you ate that. You have to be on the quay when, unfortunately, migrants come. You're the first one to be there if they lose their lives. Very little in terms of psychological help for what they experience. When the entire society sometimes cower from certain individuals, you have to be a part of that battalion that gets up. And let me tell you, once you're drawn to be a part of that battalion, you don't shrink. And there were times when you didn't have bulletproof vests. They get up and they go. Or if there's a shortage of bulletproof vests, they still go. And you want to see something for what we're experiencing now? There's some brave men and women who go into any sector of this community. And they're out there now, scouring and looking. And they understand that some may not come back. We've had officers. I have a brother, Perry Monroe, who was stationed in Andros. And his life was taken. And so they're out there today in certain circumstances where bullets are flying. And when there are those who would run and go into a different direction, those men who want to lead are doing the first thing or experiencing the first characteristic in leadership. That's service. And they put their lives on the line, and we have so many that we can call their name, who have gone to the great beyond in the service of the Royal Bahamas Police Force, literally lost their lives where they've been killed. So, Mr. Speaker, it's my honor, it's a dignified privilege to stand here today and second this motion to amend the Royal Bahamas Police Force Staff Association Act. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Member. Honorable Members, it has been moved and seconded that the following bill be read for a second time and committed. A bill for an act to amend the law relating to the election of branch board members. As many? Chair recognizes the Honorable Member for Cat Island, Rumkey, and San Salvador.
Yeah. I tried, man. Yeah. I got my stuff from, Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Yeah, Mr. Speaker. I wish to start off by just extending my thanks and appreciation to the fine residents of San Salvador, having accommodated my wife for the Mother's Day weekend. And she's asked that I express appreciation to them as they truly treated her well, and she was able to completely enjoy the meaning of motherhood and to share what nurturing and being mother is all about. I was unable to accompany her for other reasons, but I want just to thank them for the way they treated my wife, the mother of my children. Speaker, I also take the opportunity to extend condolences to the member for North Andros and the Berry Islands on the passing of his father. Fortunately, I was not able to do that before now. North Andros, I was unable to do it before now. But I just wanted to let you know that I've kept you and the family in prayers in this your hour of bereavement. And I trust that you do appreciate at the end of the day, as I always often say, wherever I have the opportunity, that death is not truly an end. It is not a full stop. It is but a sentence in the comma of, it's a comma in the sentence of life. If you live with that hope, you know that someday you'll be joined with your father again once you live the exemplary life that he left you to live. So, so, Mr. Speaker, before I move on, I'm concerned about some of the practices of the government. They continue to claim, and I try to see, and try to look, to talk about their transparency and how transparent they are. Now, it's come to our attention that perhaps the moratorium on jet skis may have been lifted, and that there's some entity or person who operates from the, what they call, Cable Beach area, may have been granted in the Panama area.
Honorable member,
Yes,
the member for Bamboo Town, the chair recognizes a member for Bamboo Town. Are you on a point of order?
Yes, sir. I'm on a point of order. Point of information. Mr. Speaker, whichever you, well, as the minister, listen, a minister can respond to an issue that is being spoken to within his. Proceed then, Cat Island, and then I will respond. Proceed and then I'll respond.
I will yield to your response. So the first question is whether or not the moratorium on jet skis would have been lifted. And then if not, then what it is that was licensed, what product was licensed to operate in the context of water sporting on the Cable Beach area, and to whom it was granted. And then, more importantly, Mr. Speaker, I have a grave concern that's been expressed, and I raise it now, that the Cable Beach, the beach, Bahama Beach, Goodman's Bay Beach, where water sporting is engaged in by many ordinary Bahamians, their livelihood is being threatened by the fact of the person in charge of security at Bahama. It's the same person who is charged with regulating, issuing, and or canceling the permission of use of being engaged in water sporting in that area. That poses a potential conflict and also provides much fodder for speculation, much fodder for rumor, because as you would note, that there's a suggestion that's floating out there that Bahama, contrary to the stated policy of the government, at least the government that I served in, which I gather is one that you would have adopted and also agree with, that the business of water sporting is exclusively reserved for Bahamians. Now, there's also, let me finish, and then you have the opportunity. Now, the Speaker, also, no, I am raising these questions because they're out there. They're out there. It's out there. So, Mr. Speaker, no, there, but Mr. Speaker, it's brought about by certain facts. There are certain facts. The fact is that the chairman of the Port Authority is in fact the security director for Bahama, which includes its beaches, right? That you have Bahamians operating water sporting facilities in that area. That poses what I said, potential challenges and conflict. Right, whether you all want to understand it or not. Right, the persons who are out there, they feel that their livelihood is being threatened because they believe that the person to whom you have just granted some license to did not have the sufficient means to be able to engage themselves in that business, in their own assessment. Right, and so those are the things that you are faced with. And whether you want to appreciate the concern is your problem. But I'm just saying to you that the question is, so in transparency...
Honorable Member, the Chair recognizes the Honorable Member for Bamboo Town.
Responsible to respond. Mr. Speaker, first off, the member for Cat Island, being the distinguished individual he is, should not be standing up in the House and giving into innuendos or perhaps information. Well, I'm saying you said it's out. You say it's out there in the ether. So I would assume that the member for Cat Island would have done his due diligence and would have investigated the facts so that he could bring the facts to the House. But seeing that he did, Mr. Speaker, let me put it on the floor of this House. Mr. Speaker, no licenses has been issued to Bahama or any foreign direct investor that is outside of the heads of agreement that they may have with the government of the Bahamas. That's the first point. And as the member would say, well, no heads of agreement should, because the policy of the Bahamas government is that water sports is reserved for Bahamians. Bahama has no jet ski licenses. Let's put that on the floor of this House. There is, let me say it again. Bahama has no jet ski licenses or any license to engage in the water sports business in this country, period. There are a number of Bahamian companies who are involved in the water sports business on Cable Beach. One of those companies happened to be a Bahamian company called Jet Surf. You can go online and see the products that are offered by this international brand, Jet Surf, of which a local Bahamian has engaged with that business abroad and has offered those pieces of equipment for water sports to our touristic visitors. This ministry, as well as the ministry, this ministry has issued licenses for Jet Surf to this franchise, which is a piece of equipment that is used. There's another piece of equipment that is a Seabob. There's another piece of equipment that is an aquacart. And those are the water sports apparatus that has been licensed. Okay? There has been no lifting of no jet ski moratorium. But I will say to those who are engaged in the water sports business, this cabinet of the Bahamas is in discussions and will be in discussions about their business, and we will be getting back to them very, very soon on the request that has been made by members out there from Cable Beach who said, in essence, that they were promised licenses by the former administration, return of their licenses that they had when they were at the Nassau Beach, okay, a number of them that they have not yet received. And as minister, I have promised to investigate that situation, and if that's the case, then we'll be looking as to how we can ameliorate that situation. That is the facts of what has taken place in regards to Bahama. There is no issuing of licenses to Bahama. It is only reserved for Bahamians. If if a Bahamian chooses to try and go into Bahama and rent space in Bahama or conduct their business with Bahama, Bahamas government can't get in between that. That's a third-party business. We issue licenses to Bahamians, period.
Honorable Member for Angleston, are you on a point of order
Yes, Mr. Speaker, point of order.
with respect to?
To the member for Bamboo Town who just spoke, Mr. Speaker, not to Cat Island. The member just drew me into his debate, Mr. Speaker. Do you have a problem with me speaking, Speaker?
I don't have a problem with you
Okay.
speaking, except, Honorable Member, that the minister was responding
Yeah.
to the Honorable
Drew me
Member
into the
for
debate.
Cat Island on a point of order.
He yielded.
And you,
The member
you-
yielded.
yes, you're standing
Yeah.
on a point of order,
Yeah.
on a point of order,
Yes. On a point of order, Mr. Speaker, on a point of order, Mr. Speaker.
based on the member's point of order.
It's very difficult for Angleston to speak in this house.
See,
Something
here,
is not right
when
here.
he raised on a point of order, I told him it was not permission. He didn't need to raise a point of order. Because he then talked about information. I said I'll allow him after I completed to yield. So it was a question of yielding. In his yielding, he raised questions of promises made by the previous government. The member from Angleston was the minister responsible. So she could speak directly to those promises that he alleged. That's why she said he brought her in by saying the previous administration promised the granting of some certain things. She is more of faith with the details of that, and so I would wish for her to respond specifically to that.
Thank you, Honorable Member.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
That is all the chair was seeking. It was clarification. An Honorable Member for Angleston, no one is trying to deny you any opportunity to speak in this house. And I'm putting you on notice because you continually make such allegations and you continually speak in a way where those allegations, despite sometimes you on your seat, whether you're on your feet or your seat, you make those allegations and they are being broadcast on the Parliamentary channel. And so, while I recognize you now on a point of order, I'm putting you on notice that the chair is not going to be tolerating that kind of remarks, whether it be from your seat or your feet in the future.
Thank you, Speaker. Speaker of Angleston, I must say, does have to work very hard to make a position known, because members get up all the time in this house. But I'm put on the strict rule. But you've indicated, Mr. Speaker, that when it comes to Angleston, that there are very strict rules applicable. I don't have a problem with that, Mr. Speaker. I was responding to the member, as you would have heard him, Mr. Speaker, in this house just momentarily, draw me into his debate, Mr. Speaker, when he said the former administration. I previously served as the minister. That is why I got up, Mr. Speaker. The member for Cat Island yielded for Bamboo Town. Speaker, the member spoke to some promises made, and I wish the member to withdraw that statement unless he's able to document. He has the files. He knows what governments have committed to. And if he's not able to support that allegation or assertion, then he should withdraw it, Mr. Speaker. And furthermore, Speaker, I want to say to the member that his point about the fact that the government does not get into third-party relations in terms of special prioritization by foreign direct investors, which give an unfair or preeminent positioning in the competitive marketplace. The government as regulator should be involved and to ensure that there is an even playing field and transparency, because when you don't do that, that is when questions are raised about special relationships as it relates to water sports, Mr. Speaker. The other thing is, Mr. Speaker, there is a moratorium. I don't think the member has answered that. There's a moratorium, and the new product is a jet ski. And my understanding is the moratorium was put on by the cabinet when I served, and so it must have been lifted by the cabinet because the government has been issuing plates, and they've not announced. There's been no announcement of the lifting of a moratorium, which is the norm, to allow for transparency and for an even playing ground for Bahamians to participate in this raising of the moratorium. I don't recall seeing any announcement, and I would be interested to know if there's been a formal and official raising moratorium by the Cabinet of the Bahamas, and if so, you know, what the meaning of that now as to the future, because I think the legislation we brought recently spoke to the minister stating how many licenses could be issued in any respective place. The other point the member raised, Mr. Speaker, is the perceived conflict of interest of an individual who is head of security at Bahama and therefore governing many of the activities, including water sports, but is the same person who sits in the Port Authority building overseeing disciplinary and regulatory affairs to these same individuals, among others. And so I'm wondering if the member could deal with that. And I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Member. The chair recognizes the Honorable Member for Bamboo Town.
Mr. Speaker, the member for Cat Island spoke to what he was told. I spoke directly to persons who are involved in the jet ski business on Cable Beach. As a matter of fact, they've given me the numbers that they were promised to be returned to them. And Mr. Speaker, I was speaking to that issue in regards to the promises that was made. And I also said to the member that we were going to look at it, and if it is the case, then we were going to seek to ameliorate that situation. Mr. Speaker, in regards to the lifting of the moratorium, I stated it very clearly that the product that was being licensed is an aqua cart, okay? And at the end of the day, Mr. Speaker, the member can argue that it is, that it operates as such, but at the end of the day, Mr. Speaker, the moratorium is not lifted, and the equipment that was licensed is in line with the company that this Bahamas group is a part of.
The chair recognizes the Honorable Member for Angleston.
The member need not take third-party information about who told him something. He's the minister. Go and look at the file. You oversee the Port Authority. Go and overlook the file and see where the documented promises were made. Yes, in the meantime, the member should withdraw, Mr. Speaker, because he made an allegation which he cannot support or document. Could you allow me to speak to the Speaker? Oh, all right, go ahead then, Speaker. And so I'm asking the member if he cannot, and you know, Mr. Speaker, you take the position, he who asserts must prove. The member asserted that the government made some promise. He is the minister responsible. He can just bring it to the Parliament.
Mr. Speaker,
the chair recognizes the Honorable Member for Bamboo Town.
Mr. Speaker, he who asserts must prove. The member for Cat Island made a number of assertions in this place that was not proven. Okay? He made a number of assertions in the place that I actually spoke to.
You said your own statement was based on what was said.
Honorable Members.
Your entire statement,
Honorable Members,
Mr. Speaker,
I believe
was based on what was said. That is what
I
the
believe
member
the way
for
to
Cat
resolve-
Island said.
Honorable Members, I believe the way to resolve this is to formally put your questions.
Yeah, Mr. Speaker.
If you formally put the questions,
Mr. Speaker, I made no assertion. I asked whether the moratorium was lifted. His answer said no. So what of that I have to approve? What of that I have to prove? That's the first point. Second point, I asked whether persons were licensed with jet skis. He said no, and he then described what was licensed. Right? We asserted through the member and we have Googled it. It's a jet ski. Ladies and jet ski, that's the way it is. He just need to Google it and he'll find that. So that's what he said. Those who are in the business knows what it is. those in the business will appreciate whether his answer to whether or not a moratorium has been lifted will understood when they look at what the entity that was licensed is doing. And so, Mr. Speaker, when he say he who proves must assert, I ask the questions. Now, the one question that he's failed to address yet today, the one question, right? And he said, he talked about hearsay. It's not hearsay. I ask, is it not true that the person in charge of security at Bahama is the same person who was the chairman of the Port Authority? He didn't answer that. The next question that is, do you see any conflict arising from that, him being the regulatory, disciplinary issuing body in charge of that, in an area of where persons are in the industry? Don't you see a conflict in that? And they never answered it. There's the questions they've asked. And so now, Mr. Speaker, and you're talking about conflict? That's what we're talking about. No, Speaker. So that is the issue. Right? And let me just say this now. Like, those who are in the business, they heard you. I raised the issue because they are raising the issue. I could say I have a direct evidence, but I'm not going to get in that. I just wanted you to get up to speak so they can hear what you say. And they now understand what is out there, because they're listening. And I told them. Yeah. Mr. Speaker, if we now move to the business at hand. All businesses are at hand, Mr. Speaker. I mean, there's a segment, or there's a demographic of Bahamians who are concerned about their livelihood. And I raised it because of that. Right? Well, they heard you. The minister said that your livelihood is in good hands and secure and protected. You who feel it will know it. You who feel it will know it. I say no more than that. Mr. Speaker, I think, in my view, that the staff association, the police staff association, they continue to play, I think, and they ought to play an important role in the growth and development of our police force. The amended bill allows for the elected team of board members, give them more time to carry out their specific policy mandate on behalf of their junior members. We have no objection to this amendment in principle, but I ask that the elected leadership, that they continue to work to promote and inculcate a culture of independence, propriety, and neutrality. The introduction of the Police Staff Association into the Royal Bahamas Police Force was for the primary purpose of having an internal body in the organization to advise the commissioner on various welfare matters that affected the rank and file of the organization. I dare say that in the initial stages, all seem to have been progressing exceptionally well until operatives sought to contaminate the association for selfish political purposes. There were notable instances, Mr. Speaker. I was reliably informed where a particular commissioner was undermined to a point where the chairman of the association thought that he wasn't just a commissioner, but he thought he was the minister. As we seek to make amendments to the Police Staff Association Act, it is critically important that politicians, or as politicians, we do not attempt to abuse that body for selfish political purposes. Notwithstanding this, we ought to reflect on the initial intended purpose of the Police Staff Association and provide guidance to its leadership, ensuring that there exists mutual respect emanating from the executive team at all times. It doesn't happen at all times. Leadership must set the standard. It's leadership that will set the tone for those that comes behind. Leadership must always be seen in the forefront, especially in times of crisis. Mr. Speaker, where there's no leadership from the front, organizations often find themselves in complete disarray and moreover in a tailspin. Over the years, meddling and undermining did a grave disservice to the Staff Association, depriving that body of its potential to evolve into an entity that it was intended to focus on the future of its members and not the political aspirations of a selective few. Questions still remain. Is to what extent will anyone go to achieve personal selfish benefits in that association? Where is the loyalty to the force's leadership emanating from that association and the fine members of the force that elected them to be non-partisan? And most of all, why did integrity get misplaced in the midst of it all? Why would the police association leadership, for example, encourage its membership to wear political colors at an advanced poll? Have they not taken into account the danger of an organization like the police not appearing to be non-partisan? Mr. Speaker, political influence, meddling, and disgraceful undermining is still present today. The FNM must remove itself from the Staff Association election process, period. It is not healthy in a small country such as ours. Let the police get on with its business as it knows best. You know, I take this opportunity.
Honorable member.
I take this
Honorable
opportunity
member.
to respond to the
Honorable member.
Huh?
The member for Yamakro is on a point of order.
Yeah.
The chair recognizes the honorable member for Yamakro.
Mr. Speaker, you know, an organization, as I started in, an organization like the police force is established by the Constitution of the Bahamas. One of the criterions underlined by the Privy Council is that such organization established through the Police Service Commission must be insulated from political interference. And so for a member to stand and make such careless accusations, Mr. Speaker, without one iota of evidence or fact, to say that the FNM, is interfering with the Police Staff Association, I think he should withdraw that, Mr. Speaker, or bring the evidence to demonstrate that the party is interfering with the Police Staff Association, an association established by laws.
Honorable member for Cat Island, Rumkey.
You know, I'm taking the opportunity, if I may do so, to respond to your leader's remarks about us. He sees political interference in the police force, but he points the fingers at us. Right? And I'm about to respond to that. That's what I'm responding to. Yeah, I guess I can respond to that.
Honorable member, the chair recognizes the honorable member for Yamakro.
Mr. Speaker, I take issue with the statement made by the member for Cat Island, Rumkey, in San Salvador. There was a previous public statement that he made identifying, and I never knew for all the years that I was worked in the police force that officers were PLP and FNM. He made the statement that my leader was removing or purging the Royal Bahamas Police Force of PLPs. Mr. Speaker, but having regard that he's the leader of Her Majesty's loyal opposition, and what I just said about the Constitution of the Royal Bahamas Police Force, how it was established, and how our most senior court said in the case of Endell Thomas and the Queen, that it should be insulated from political interference. If he has such evidence, he should bring it. None of those officers who he alleged to have been speaking about has identified themselves with any political party. And so to come here and put a bold face, shameless accusation, it should not be done, and it's irresponsible, Mr. Speaker, and he should withdraw it. And also to come and say that my leader initiated, my leader just was quoting from him.
Honorable member, what precisely would you wish the member for Cat Island to withdraw?
That this government is promoting political interference into the Royal Bahamas Police Force. He said that earlier, and you can go back to the, well, I don't have to say verbatim for what he said. And he doesn't have to be elusive and evasive. He's the leader of the opposition and a senior man in this house, Mr. Speaker.
Chair recognizes honorable member for Cat Island, Rumkins, and Salvador.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move on.
Honorable member,
Speaker,
with respect to what he alleged that you had said, the member for Yamakon.
I never spoke about the promotion of political interference. I spoke about us, and I did not name any party in particular. I said that we ought to be careful, right? And listen, Mr. Speaker, I move on. See, I move on, right? What I want to point out, Mr. Speaker, is that the member for Kalani, Mr. Speaker, I said that in a context of my views of what is happening, and I speak to that now. What I speak to, Mr. Speaker, I wish to take this opportunity to respond to what he had to say, right? Who accused the PLP of political interferences in the operational affairs of the police force. The member for Kalani, he clearly have been confused. You don't bite your tongue, right? You didn't bite your tongue when you made those inflammatory remarks about the PLP interfering with the police force. You don't appreciate, you didn't understand.
Honorable
right,
member,
Mr. Speaker?
the member, I do want a point of order.
What's the point? He ain't say point of order, he just stand up.
Mr. Speaker, I rise on a point of order.
The chair recognizes the honorable member for Kalani.
I want to refer to the Nassau Guardian. The member said
Honorable member, can you give the date?
I will adopt it, Mr. Speaker. The date is March 26, 2019. PM, meaning me, purging police of PLPs. I didn't know what their political affiliation was, not until you spoke.
Well, I'm happy that the Prime Minister intervened on a point of order. The one thing we do know now is that he made a decision. He made a decision. I didn't know that they were PLP.
Honorable member, the chair recognizes the honorable member for Kalani.
We did a manpower audit, the government. We reviewed, the government, this is a point of order. The government looked at different agencies where individuals had an accumulation of vacation leave and decided individuals having these long 1 year, 2 year vacation leave. And Mr. Speaker, I'm trying to find out now from the Ministry of Finance how much millions of dollars we spend annually on vacation leave. Individuals who refuse to take vacation leave, we must pay for vacation leave, and we know what happened. We know what happened.
Criteria. Do you want me to give you the list of others you could have let go and sent home to like that? Because you were selective in the process. You were selective in the process. You were selective.
You don't have to give me a list.
You were selective.
Give me a list. But if ever, and you never will, sit in this chair, if ever and you never will, then you can look up the list yourself.
They said that about you too. Yeah. Right? Even those who are in your own party said that about you. Right? Even those who are in your own party said, but you are selective. There are members on the force today with equally as much as vacation that you kept on. You go to the other services and you find that too. But one thing I know, you did that, right? So, Mr. Speaker, but I just want him to know, because very often he makes these commentary without appreciating and understanding the history to it. You don't even know the history of your own party or what your party did. Right? So, Mr. Speaker,
Honorable member, the member for Kalani is on a point of order. The member for Kalani is on a point of order.
On a point of order.
The chair recognizes the honorable member
Yes,
for honorable member.
You said, the member said, I did not know, I am unaware of what my own party did. In 2009, we brought forth a communication to the police where we allowed them to take a 1-year package in addition to their vacation leave pay and then go into retirement. I refuse to pay individuals for vacation, allow them to take their vacation and then go into retirement. I am not spending the government's money. And you in charge? Absolutely.
All the member has said is that he departed from a principle that was adopted by his party. Fine. That's his right. But what I'm saying, Mr. Speaker, I'm saying he don't understand what his party did in this context when he talks about political interference. I speak to him about this. If he had known his history, he would have known that the PLP appointed the last commissioner of police that was appointed by the Progressive Party was 31 years ago. Everyone since then was appointed by the FNM. So what then? What role then? What role then could the PLP have in the politicization of the police force? Right? Right? That's it, right? So, Mr. Speaker, so I want them to know that. B.K. Bonamy was the last, right? Yeah. No, hell, Speaker, what I do know is that it was a callous, uncaring act. I'll speak to that. Let me speak to that. Right? But let me just say, Mr. Speaker, that insofar as I'm aware, right, the government has expended substantial funds to have our police leadership trained. And I'm saying, let them do their job. There have been 1 or 2 missteps, we accept, that the government invested in officers who had other aspirations other than policing on their minds. We accept that. We accept that to be so. Right? But the training was to ensure that we have and we created a dynamic and deeply rooted bench for leadership in the force. That was our thrust and approach to the policing. In spite of all that, the PLP did prepare the police force for the unprecedented challenges that we are facing with crime. The now government, you are not satisfied until you all took out your weapon of victimization and gutted the leadership of the Royal Bahamas Police Force. Without any mercy, Mr. Speaker, without any mercy to loyal, dedicated, and qualified officers who gave their entire adult life to protecting the people who live and play in our beloved country. What was more heart-wrenching, Mr. Speaker, this uncaring government gave no consideration to the families and friends of these executives as they seek to end their careers in disgrace and shame. In fact, Mr. Speaker, the immediate families of these fine officers were left with a bad taste in their mouths, and they felt betrayed. You know, one of the things they said, Mr. Speaker,
Um,
is that the organization was too top-heavy. They say the organization was too top-heavy. We unequivocally differ. Our decision was decisive and well thought out. Our objective was to put leadership on the
Honorable
front
member,
line to which we achieved
the member
while
for
rewarding
Yamatro
serving officers.
is on the point of order.
Speaker,
The chair recognizes the honorable member for Yamagro.
shameless, baseless. Mr. Speaker, the Royal Bahamas Police Force has an establishment for 1 commissioner of police. And max, I think it is 5 assistant commissioners. How can you say that, how can one then say that, and it's not really their management of the police force, because the verbiage is wrong. The police force is established by way of the Constitution, and there's a way by which the Police Service Commission assists in the promotion of police officers. So not the PLP or the FNM. But if it is that under the administration, you alone, just the assistant commissioner's rank, to about 10 or more, or 11, how could that be objective? And then,
Honorable member.
and so, Mr. Speaker,
Honorable member.
there's been a report laid.
What
in
is
this
the point?
honorable
What is the point?
The point of order is that he's misleading this House when he says that just allow, no. I don't want him to get upset. This one is going to be slow and steady. He could just relax. Slow and steady. Mr. Speaker, to suggest to the Bahamian people that you would have ballooned the compliment or the establishment of the Royal, and this is just one instance, because we have had the report laid.
You
Balloon the assistant commissioner rank to 11 when it only requires 5 marks. It's totally irresponsible, Mr. Speaker. So to come and to say that during the PLP's time, that the administration, just in that instance, was fit is wrong, Mr. Speaker. And that should be struck from the record. And he's making all sorts of unsubstantiated and irresponsible and scurrilous statements here today, Mr. Speaker.
Speaker,
Honorable member, a point of order as well.
The member said
The chair recognizes the honorable member for Kalani.
The member said the police force was not top-heavy, and I want to adopt an article in The Guardian that reviewed the manpower audit that we had done. Manpower audit reveals huge No, listen, you are giving erroneous information. You are misleading the House. When you're misleading the House, I'm presenting the facts. No. Don't present view. You present the view.
Honorable member.
Present the facts. Which is more important. A view for the facts.
Honorable members.
The facts is it's top heavy. And it's top heavy as a result of you. The evidence are here. Listen, you are a lawyer. Which is more important in court? The rule of facts or the rule of opinion?
Honorable members. Honorable members. Honorable members. Honorable members, only one member should be honorable member. I'm speaking. Just a moment. Only one member should be on his feet at a time. And honorable members. The House is finished now. Honorable members, honorable member for Kalani still on a point of order.
allow me to read the facts, since we are a parliament of facts and not opinion.
Can you give the date, honorable member, of
Yes,
that
Mr.
article?
The date oh, it's a long article. Yeah, it's not there. It's not there. No. No. The date, Mr. Speaker, I'll give you the date. The Royal Bahamas Police Force manpower audit revealed that only about half of the constables needed are present on the force, a critical deficiency in the organization's recruitment process. The 2018 audit tabled by the Minister of National Security, Marvin Dames, in the House of Assembly yesterday outlines critical challenges in the organization, from the resource management practices, flawed and biased promotion exercises, and the senior command of the force being too top-heavy, the latter of which the audit recommends becoming more lean because there appears to be a lack of conceptual transformational leadership. Facts, not fiction.
See, I'm not going to go in any operating theater, and I'm not going to try to deliver any babies. I'm not going to try that. Right?
Thank God.
And since he drew me into this as a lawyer, and he talked about facts and opinions, just let me tell him the distinction here from just what he read. What he really read was the opinion of someone who would have looked at the facts. What the facts were? The facts were that you have, for example, 500 constables. And the opinion is that's too much. The fact, that's so revealed, man. You raised the issue of what is fact or opinion. I'm trying to let you understand what the facts are. The facts there were you had 200 constables maybe, and the opinion from the report is, well, that's too much. That's the opinion. That's it, right? Or too little. That's the opinion. You see, that's that's the facts and the opinion. So
Honorable members.
So, Mr. Speaker, may I continue?
Honorable members, on a point of order.
Ask the member, since he was arguing law, I'll argue medicine. If the facts show that that the department can run with 5 obstetrician gynecologists, and I hire 20, the facts are I have more than I need. That's facts. That's not an opinion.
But, Mr. Speaker, what is viewed by the others? See, I may have a view that I could use the additional 10 instead of the 5. But it's an opinion by others. Anyhow, Mr. Speaker, let me move on. Right? Mr. Speaker, when the decision, and let me just explain our position in the matter. When the decision was made to introduce the leadership model that the new government recklessly dismantled, both the police executives and the government were satisfied that that was the right thing to do. It wasn't done by the government alone. It included the police executive when it was done. We were satisfied that everyone that received those promotions were qualified and deserving. The leadership had taken to the streets, which significantly created a positive impact overnight. The public wanted to see a greater level of authority in the local community and taking the lead in the community. It's called leadership from the front. That's what we're developing, leadership from the front. That was the PLP model. It worked for the local community and the wider country, whilst giving the supervisory officers and first responders the support it needed. We got the khaki on the ground. We put more boots on the ground, and it worked. And Mr. Speaker, as I stand here and speak today, right, confidence in certain of our inner city communities is weakening when it comes down to their confidence in the police. And we need to bolster up our community policing. We need to put the khaki on the ground. right? So that people could see authority. And it wasn't done by the PLP government alone. It was done in consultation with the police executives. You see, Mr. Speaker, we believe in listening to and working with the police professionals. You can't be a police and a politician at the same time. You can't be it. You can't serve God and Mammon. And I say today, you have to choose. Right? You have to choose. He shouldn't be there. Mount Moriah should be gone by now. But anyhow, that's another matter. Right? You also make sure you have a minister of national security. Right? Right? You want somebody, you want police officers. They have to decide whether they want to be police officers or policy makers. You can't be both. So I encourage the Prime Minister, with your new appointment of the national security, to refrain from getting someone who's going to seek to influence and undermine our first line of defense. While you are dismantling the leadership of the force, the criminal elements, they're organizing. The country is challenged at this time with local gangs retaliating against each other. We must build the police organization, and no sensible leader, he's not just taking responsibility, he's the one who fired them. And if the member from Yamako, who keeps talking with the law and how the law, what do you talk about the police commission and all that? That's what he said. Right? That's what he was saying. And they're the ones who're supposed to promote and discipline and all that. Well, the prime minister said that he fired these things, right? So the country, as I said, Mr. Speaker, no sensible leader would have given a second thought to casting experienced and knowledgeable professionals out to pasture at a time like this. But here again, this behavior from the FNM is not a new one, you know. When it comes to the police, history is no doubt repeating itself. Only good thing about that, you know, every time they did it, they were out the next time. History has shown they're out the next time. And it ain't long now, they'll be out again. But I implore you, to return those police executives to the office without further delay. You have a crisis on your hands in the last 5 days. You have all these shootings. You know, I told you all, Mr. Speaker, I said before, Mr. Speaker, you're going to invest all that money in what they call it, the shot spotter. Right? And look what happened with all the shootings in the last several days. What the shot spot was about. As I warned you then, and I repeat again, what good is it to know when the shot has been fired, when persons are going to the hospital or in the graveyard, right? So, Mr. Speaker, right? See, my cousin could tell you when the shot is fired down the road, right? He could say the shot is fired down the road, man. Right? Yeah, and spend all that money to say when a gun is fired. How that helps? Spend the money in trying to prevent the gun from being fired. Find a means by which you could stop the gun from being fired. Right? And so, Mr. Speaker, I say restore the police executives to their positions without further delay. You see, the decision will no doubt have far-reaching consequences in the months ahead if this critical area of the police organization is not restored. We only have one Bahamas, and to lose it to hoodlums because of one vindictive person who is trying to live out his childhood dreams through the office of the commissioner will be a travesty and a grave disservice on our Bahama land. You now know why Papa didn't make him commissioner. Right? You know why? And if you don't see it, Papa was a smart man.
I never used to say that.
So Papa was a smart man. Yeah, oh yeah, I just said that. Yeah. He was Filipino. We trained him, man. Yeah. Oh, you never heard me? You don't know him? See, none of you know him and me, so you don't get any in his business. So y'all don't get in that business. Stay out of it. Stay out of it. Stay out of it. Now you tell it. So all I'm saying is, Papa had good sense. He know why he ain't appoint him. Right? But you saw fit to make him Minister of National Security, and now it's time for you to fire him. Fire him. Fire him. And so, Mr. Speaker, one of the policies that we were following aggressively was ensuring that we had boots on the ground with the requisite resources. And we wanted khaki boots on the ground as well. Right? And Mr. Speaker, I called on the Police Staff Association because they can play a very important and influential role in ensuring that the critical crime fighting needs are adequately addressed. And I call upon them to make their voices heard in that regard. And we in the opposition, of course, we understand the crisis. Right? We want to help. Right? We want to push it, right? But they can't take the criticisms. They like to silence the opposition voices. Right? But our voices will not be silenced. Right. Never be silenced. You know that. And so, Mr. Speaker, we do support I said it. I started. It's not an issue.
Despite all the talk.
I have to. We have to touch. The government is. They lost. They lost. I mean, trying to keep them in the right perspective, right? And they hear and they know. And what I have to say would have been part of what I hear from them, because I listen to them. Yeah, well, that happens too. That happens too. Right? But I know that I'm hearing from a group that is significant, and they don't just have the force at their heart. They also have the country at heart. They don't want something to think. They don't have any selfish agenda for the promotion of themselves. They ain't looking to come in here or be voted in here or anything of the sort. And so, Mr. Speaker, we indicate that we do support the amendment with the observations made in respect to the approach to policing in the country. I thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Member. As many?
If I may, I didn't want to interrupt the Honourable Member.
The Chair recognizes the Honourable Member for Southern Shores.
To interrupt the Honourable Member who took the opportunity to move far away from the Police Staff Association Act, even though he acknowledged up front that he supports it. And the Honourable Member went on to, the Honourable Leader went on to talk about who would have been operatives and who would have sat in the police force in anticipation of being in another place, referencing this place. Mr. Speaker, I just want to say to the Honourable Member, Mr. Speaker, I just want to say to the Honourable Member, unless he is on the point of order, I just want to say to the Honourable Member, Mr. Speaker,
Honourable Members,
that one of the good things about being a police officer is that you get to know and hear and see some things that the average man don't see. And as a result of that, one is able to make some decisions and some projections based on that. So maybe it's not by chance that police officers sat, saw, and heard some things, and then they all decided that they want to be FNM, which resulted in 4 of them sitting in here as FNMs. Mr. Speaker, the Honourable Leader talk about political interference I do recall a prime minister, a sitting prime minister. I do recall, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable member.
No, I'm not closing yet. You don't want this now, eh?
Honorable member.
So I still can say it. You don't want it now, eh?
You want to point out?
I'll wrap up. I'll wrap up. I'll wrap up.
Okay.
I got it written down. I ain't gonna forget it. I'll wrap up.
Thank you, honorable members. As many? The chair recognizes the honorable member for Elizabeth.
You all can come back late from lunch.
Mr. Speaker.
Honorable members, the chair recognizes the honorable member for Bamboo Town.
Mr. Speaker, this is a wonderful place and opportunity for us to suspend for lunch. And I do move that the House suspends for lunch until 3 p.m. That's like that, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable members, it has been moved and seconded that the business of this House do suspend until 3 p.m. this afternoon. As many as in favor will remain seated. Those who oppose will stand. The business of this House stands suspended until 3 p.m. this afternoon.